We got the voters list out. It was probably the most stressful night of my life. It was so chaotic. I was living in the United States for probably collectively about 11 years. And I'd come home and started, and I got the job as director of elections. It was I remember I came home I took the job May 26, 1997. I don't have to look it up, it's a date that's burned into my memory. And our first election that I did was December 18th of 1997, the same year. So I had about 6 months to do three things essentially. Complete the registration, the implementation of a new electoral registration system. It had been underway already, but had run aground. No fingerprint cards in the country. People don't know what this thing is about. The running of and the production of a voters list. A new electoral registration system produced a new voters list, and because with the electoral system was also the registration, full enumeration exercise with a new registration system. Produce a voters list from it and hold an election within 6 months of becoming director of elections. Yet I remember at one point that everything I had done in my life up to that point was to prepare me for this job. And I was seized with that. I was a soldier in the 1980 election, so I understood fully
in Jamaica.
In Jamaica. I understood fully what we were facing as a young man. I was about 19 years old. And I know many people speak about patriotism, and I'm not one to brag. But at 19, I already had a green card. I chose to stay here at 19. That's how committed I was then as a young man. Most people have a green card at 19. They're in America, right? I was there, I came back home and said, I need my own roots here. And that's when I joined the reserves, and it was a year or so before the 98 election, which was a tough election, right? I was an accountant as a CPA, which was what I became when I lived in America. And what that did was teach me lists. Accounting and auditing teach you about numbers and what we call completeness. Your concept in auditing, when you know you have everything, which helped me a lot in how I saw the voters list, right? So, and I felt that I was really ready for this job, even though I knew very little about the job. I didn't even voted before in my life. I didn't know which constituency I lived in. It didn't matter to me. Those things weren't important to me. I knew a lot more about the American system than I knew about the Jamaican system because I was there for those years. And so we took up this job. But what amazed me was just how corrupt it was. It was phenomenally corrupt. The number of electors on a voters list. In 1993, the voters list for one constituency in St. Andrew South.
One division?
A full constituency.
That constituency
was 26,000 people on the voters list. And after taking...
That's 1993.
1993. Because there was an election in 93. So the election for 93, that the voters decided like 26,000 people in. After we introduced fingerprints to the voters list, and after 5 years of population growth, that voters list for the constituency was about 18,000. That's the number of people that disappeared from the voters list because you couldn't find them. I mean, they never existed in the first place. They're fictitious people who voted. Garrisons exist to make sure you have an opposition. You'll always have an opposition. You'll hear countries like Grenada and like Barbados, where all the seats are won by one party. That won't happen in Jamaica because of Garrisons, right? You don't care how the popular vote is. Once you had Garrisons in place, your leader of the opposition would have a seat. Right? We don't have that in Jamaica. We have had areas where the leader of the party is not in parliament. But that's just till the next election.
Yes.
Right? Can
Yes.
you pick a seat? A safe seat.
Yes.
Right? And both parties have it, and both parties have conceded those areas. So my looking at the electoral system was, Garrisons didn't just exist because of the violence that may have been how they started, but they also exist because the other side have conceded that that's not a winnable seat and I'm going to spend no resources there.
Yes.
Right? So they've abdicated those seats, and people there have no real choice. In West Kingston, Siaga's appointment was a man parking cars on Orange Street. I know him. Right? And I could go around and show you the rabbits that were put up, because nobody was spending the money there.
Yes.
It was like a joke.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You go from, and it's sad because there are citizens who live there who need competitive representation,
Yes.
or they will never enjoy full citizenship in some of those areas.
Yeah, but the truth is, in those areas too, not everybody supported the political status quo.
No, absolutely not,
Yeah.
right? And I think you're seeing a lot more of that today.
Yes.
Because we have a political system, electoral system the way we have it. In 1997, we got the voters list out. It was probably the most stressful night of my life. It was so
97.
chaotic because of the new electoral system. A week before the voters list was to the election, we have this thing called a black book with all the pictures in it that of the elector, and they all came back blank. Right? You're talking about 600,000 pages with none of the photographs of the electors in it.
Why?
And you know, that's the thing, when you ask why, the IT people are so happy when they can tell you why. But you're still sitting there with your 600,000 blank pages.
Yes.
And this is December, right? So, some IT coding, whatever, I never really listen to those things because my brain is moving towards how I fix this?
Yes.
How do I fix this? And I had to contract with the largest printing installations of IBM. One was in Colorado and one was in Toronto, Canada, to send what they call DLT tapes, which is back then, these were the storage devices. Now you probably carry the entire photos list on one chip, but back then you had these tapes that you have to send up there and just spool them up and print all these lists and they print it on like continuous feed, like how the newspapers printed.
Right.
So I had to fly someone up, one to Toronto, I went to one, right? And my assistant director of the IS department went to the other one, taking these tapes in a briefcase.
This is how long before the election?
This is a week before the election, right? And to make them arrange to print them, no. The next issue is to get them back into Jamaica, because these are boxes and boxes and boxes. So I had to charter 2 jets to bring them back from Toronto and from Denver, Colorado. So the night before the election is when one of the flights were landing, right? And we now have to put them all into polling division books and send them out all over the island. To say it was chaotic was an understatement. I think one of the newspapers had that as the headline the next day, chaos, right? But as I said, it was a time, with all of that, I put it to you that election was probably more fair than the elections before, with all of its chaos, because the voters list
Was clear.
were far more accurate.